In rock music, there are two distinct ways to build a legacy. You can explode, burn impossibly bright for a few short years, and disappear. Or you can put your head down and release hit after hit, decade after decade. Nirvana defined the early 90s. They captured the attention of the entire world almost overnight, but their time in the spotlight was incredibly short-lived. Then you have the Foo Fighters. They've been a relentless touring and recording machine for 3 decades, and they are still operating at the absolute top of their game. What makes this comparison actually work is the bridge connecting them, Dave Grohl. He sat behind the drum kit for Nirvana, and right after Kurt Cobain's tragic death, he built the Foo Fighters from the ground up. Now, people will argue endlessly about which band wrote better songs or had a better sound. We are throwing all of those subjective opinions out the window. Instead, we're going to look at the hard numbers across 3 categories: physical commercial footprint, modern digital permanence, and live institutional impact. We're running the math to figure out what actually yields a bigger footprint: a highly concentrated burst of cultural density, or the compounding interest of a multi-decade marathon. Let's start by auditing their physical output. The production disparity here is massive. Nirvana was active for just about 7 years and released exactly 3 studio albums. The Foo Fighters have been running for 30 years, racking up 11 studio albums. This chart plots global physical sales alongside platinum certifications. Looking right here at Nirvana, their incredibly short runs still yielded an astonishing 75 million global sales and 28 distinct platinum records. Let's map the Foo Fighters onto that same graph. Despite having decades to sell physical CDs and cassettes, their total sits at 35 million global sales, with 15 platinum records. Drilling down into single releases shows an even starker contrast. Nirvana's peak was Nevermind, moving 30 million copies worldwide. The Foo Fighters' single best-selling release isn't even a traditional studio album. It's their greatest hits compilation, moving 3.5 million. Because of those massive individual spikes, Nirvana secured a diamond record, representing 10 million copies sold of a single album. The Foo Fighters have never reached that specific milestone. We see a similar ratio across their combined social media accounts. Even without being an active band, Nirvana holds 27 million total followers across platforms, edging out the active Foo Fighters' 21 million. What this data tells us is that a limited, tightly capped catalog forced consumers to concentrate all their purchasing power into just 3 albums. This yielded a significantly higher commercial return per release than a steady drip of continuous music. But physical media, like CDs, cassettes, and analog recordings, belong mostly to the past. Nirvana's entire catalog was entirely built within that older ecosystem. So how does that translate to modern streaming platforms that didn't even exist when Kurt Cobain was alive? This graph tracks modern Spotify engagement. When we pull Nirvana's metrics today, they sit at 12.1 billion total streams and draw in a massive audience of 31 million monthly listeners. When we chart the Foo Fighters alongside them, the actively touring band actually trails the inactive one. The Foo Fighters command 8.7 billion total streams and 18 million monthly listeners. Comparing their absolute top hits reveals the same gap. Smells Like Teen Spirit has racked up 2.2 billion streams, comfortably outpacing the Foo Fighters' top track, Everlong, which sits at 1.3 billion. Video platforms mirror this exact trend. Nirvana's legacy YouTube channel, which relies completely on old, remastered music videos, has pulled in 5.5 billion views. The Foo Fighters' actively managed channel, packed with decades of diverse content, has 2.8 billion. It turns out Nirvana's cultural resonance is so deeply ingrained that a catalog sitting completely dormant still passively outstreams a band that is actively marketing and releasing new albums today. Recording music is just one side of the business. To measure the full scope of a band, you have to examine the operational realities of their day-to-day existence, specifically live touring capacity and industry networking. Nirvana generally stuck to smaller, more chaotic venues. Even at their absolute touring peak, their largest crowds were at events like the 1992 Reading Festival, which pulled in roughly 50 to 60,000 people. This is where the Foo Fighters scaled differently. They built a massive touring infrastructure designed for global stadium supremacy. At their peak, they packed 86,000 people into Wembley Stadium for a single show. And when you look closely at institutional validation, Nirvana's anti-establishment posture kept them largely separated from traditional awards. Over their entire run, they received just 7 Grammy nominations and took home a single win. The Foo Fighters, on the other hand, are the ultimate music industry insiders. Through sheer persistence and volume, they've secured 113 nominations, resulting in 15 Grammy wins. Nirvana maintained an intense underground purity that kept their operations relatively modest. By contrast, the Foo Fighters leveraged their longevity to capture the absolute peak of modern rock operations and institutional approval. So the data gives us 2 completely different definitions of success: operational longevity on one side and highly concentrated cultural density on the other. If we're judging purely by live stadium footprint, ongoing revenue generation, and industry trophies, the Foo Fighters win comfortably. But this matrix tracks the entire dataset. When you add up total global sales, digital permanence, and cross-generational appeal, the majority of the objective metrics land securely in Nirvana's column. Because they command vastly superior sales and streaming numbers despite being completely absent from the industry for 30 years, Nirvana is the objectively bigger band. The only real caveat here is time. Nirvana's catalog is locked in stone forever, while the Foo Fighters are still an active, continuously recording entity capable of generating new data tomorrow. But right now, the numbers are clear. The slow, compounding interest of a multi-decade marathon is impressive, but it simply cannot outpace the immense, concentrated blast of a cultural supernova.